Who wrote the Bible? Where does it come from? What does it mean? Is there a group of people historically who are responsible for the Bible and have shaped our faith? What did they teach? And what can we celebrate as one human family about their teachings? This is Stan Matthews, and I'm here to tell you the story of the secret origin, coming to you directly from the land of origins, Greater Ethiopia, the oldest nation in the world. About 150,000 years ago, the rains coming from the Ethiopian highlands began forming the foundation of what is known today as the Nile River. About 7,000 years ago, the Nile River basin finally established its finishing point at the Mediterranean seas. All throughout this period of over 100,000 years, people from the Ethiopian highlands and all of East Africa settled along this highway, this massive river that would bring life, bring culture, bring faith for the people. And the people brought with them their culture, they brought with them their science, their economics, their laws, their morals, and their ethics. Most importantly, they brought their sacred science. They brought their faith. And so these people established the greatest, most storied civilization known to man. That civilization is the Kemetic civilization, what we now call the Egyptian high classic civilization. What are we here for? We're here to hear the voice of a scholar, Dr. Ahmed Osman, reveal what we call the secret origin, the origin of the patriarchs of the Bible, the origin of David, the person who established and reinforced the first global empire. We're here to hear the story of the dreamer, Joseph, the man who told his brothers, one day I would rule, the inheritor of an inheritance directly from Isaac. We're here to find out the secret origin of the man known as Solomon, the man of peace, the man of wisdom, the man of wealth and riches. We're here to find out the origin of a famous relationship he had with a queen of the south that we call Sheba today, but was from the land of Punt, which is present day Somaliland or Eritrea, that whole northern coast of the Horn of Africa. We're here today to learn the secret origin of the lawgiver, Moses, the person who I believe to be the most revolutionary thinker on the concept of the one God, the universal God that ever walked the earth. Here to learn the secret origin of the man called Joshua, his son, the son of Nun, who some believe may have been the example of the messianic leader that would have its full flowering in the first century in a revolutionary leader we now know as Christ. But the role model for the one who would call the people to salvation, stand as a messianic ruler, was Joshua. Dr. Osman's work, The Secret Origin, is a must-have for your library. It's a must-have for everyone's library because it demonstrates that these were historical, real figures and they had an impact on our social lives, our political lives, our economic lives, and our spiritual lives, even today. Get your copy of Secret Origin, but first enjoy what we have prepared for you. Thanks for coming, and enjoy Secret Origin. Good afternoon. This is Stan Matthews, and I welcome all of you to this very special opportunity to hear the words of a master of enlightenment as he unveils for us his thought process over a 50-plus year period to uncover, unravel, and reveal truths about our Bible and about our past that we may not have thought about or may not have dared to understand. I'm with Egyptologist and scholar Dr. Ahmed Osman, who has groundbreaking work that he wants to share with the world, and that he has shared over 5 centuries. And so we start today by asking him, why was it, Dr. Osman, that you thought that we should look at Egypt again and find, as we look at Egypt, the biblical characters coming to life in the personages of Tutmosis III, who you regard to be the David of the Bible, Amenhotep III, who you regard to be Solomon of the Bible, Akhenaten, who you regard to be Moses of the Bible, and Tutankhamun, who you regard to be Joshua, or in some cases, maybe even Jesus. So let's start there. Why this body of work? Why look at Egypt again? Dr. Osman, please share the reasons why you believe Amenhotep III and Solomon are the same person.
In reality, it is not that difficult in this case with the Solomon and Amenhotep III, as even Alderney people who are not specialized in history or Bible have already recognized the many similarities between the two characters. For instance, both of them ruled a country, an empire between the Euphrates and Egypt without having to fight. Amenhotep III, inherited the empire without having to do any fighting. Although, both of them, got the name Solomon, but Solomon in the Bible was given a different name on his birth. He was given the name Judaidah. He was called Judaidah, and Amenhotep obviously is called Amenhotep. They only got the title Solomon because of the peaceful era people lived during their rule. So Solomon was a title, not a name of a person. They became known as Solomon, not because of their name, but because of their life. Now, again, it is very strange to find in the Bible that the first wife that Solomon, biblical Solomon, married was the daughter of Pharaoh. The daughter of Pharaoh. He married the daughter of Pharaoh. Amenhotep III married his sister, the daughter of his father, the Pharaoh, Sitamun. Then again, Amenhotep III, like in the same way as Solomon, wanted to enforce the relationship between different parts of the empire without fighting through diplomatic and social relationships. So he married about 4 or 5 princesses from different parts of the empire. Both of them had the same thing. Both of them had many women in their harem. Amenhotep III is having more than 300 women in his harem, and Solomon is known to have had many women in their harem. The taxing system, it's known that, according to the Bible, that Solomon established 12 different parts of the empire to pay tax. Each part pay 1 month's tax for the empire. This is the same system, tax system, that Amenhotep III used in Egypt, as well as building. It is known that Solomon built a great temple for God, and he built the royal palace next to his temple. And this is the same situation with Amenhotep III, who built a new royal palace west of Thebes, which is now Luxor, and he built next to it his mortuary temple, his great mortuary temple, where the statues of Memnon are still standing now, the great statues of Memnon. Both of them were peaceful. Both of them, the wisdom. They were known for their wisdom because they did not go to war, to fighting, in order to establish the power, but to, communications, social communication, giving presents, having exchange marriages, and so on. So both of the men are doing the same. Both of them ruled for about 40 years. It's the similarities between the two are too many, and too obvious, really.
Thank you so much for sharing those similarities.
But okay, excuse me, I have forgotten one very, very important and very, in fact, 2 points. Although Solomon is known to have been built the temple for God, for the Lord, believing in one God, it is said that at the end of his life, he worshipped other deities. He was affected by his wives, foreign wives, and he worshipped other gods, including the goddess, Levantine goddess Ashtaroth. Amenhotep III worshipped different deities, the deities of Egypt. However, when his son Akhenaten introduced the worship of one god, he also believed in the one god of his, we have evidence of he believed in the one god of his son Akhenaten, the one god. You see, so this is, you cannot believe in one god and many gods at the same time. This is a very rare situation. But both of them, Solomon and Amenhotep III, worshipped one god. And strangely enough, the name of Ashtaroth, as one of the deities worshipped by Solomon at the end of his days, Amenhotep III, during his last part of his life, had some difficulties with his teeth. Maybe he was taking too many sugars and sweets and so on. So he suffered too much pain from his teeth. And it seems that the Egyptian physicians were not able to cure him. So he was sent by Tushrata, his father-in-law, the father of one of his wives, foreign wives. He was sent the image of Ashtaroth specifically. So both of them worship the same goddess Ashtaroth at the same time.
Thank you for that explanation of the similarities between these two men that persuades you that they're the same historical character. One of the things that come to my mind right away is that both of them had a very open mind, not just about the concept of faith or spirituality, but also an open mind to information coming from around the empire. Dr. Osman, you have mentioned in your work that there was a foreign wife who Amenhotep III made his principal wife, and leads you to believe to the next character, who was a very important character in the court and in the administration of Amenhotep III. This character we know in the Bible as Joseph. You have identified this character in Egyptian history as Yuya, the Grand Vizier, the master of the chariot. Some would say the prime minister of Amenhotep III. Of what significance does Yuya, or the biblical Joseph, the father-in-law of Amenhotep III, have to his thinking and to his governance of ancient Egypt?
You see, in the Bible, it says, Joseph says when he spoke to his brothers when they came for the second time to buy gold in Egypt, he told them, when he told them, I am your brother, so they were ashamed that they sold him as a slave, and now he's treating them as helping them and so on. So he said, it was not you who brought me here, but God who made me father to Pharaoh. Father to Pharaoh is a very rare name in Egyptian. It's an Egyptian title, but a very rare name. We have Holy Father, Eat Neter. Eat is a father, Neter is a holy. Eat Neter is a common priestly title. But his special title, Yuya's special title, Eat Neter en Neptawi, the Holy Father of the Lord of the two lands. And this is exactly the same title that Joseph mentioned to his brothers, according to the biblical story. So, and when, as the Bible story relates, when Pharaoh appointed him as one of his ministers, he gave him three objects, his ring and a golden necklace and a chariot, a small chariot. In reality, the three objects were found in Yuya's tomb. And obviously they represent, symbolize the jobs he was taking. And as we know, although Egyptians used the chariot of war during the 18th dynasty, but it was part of the army. It was not a separate unit in the army. The first time it became a separate unit in the army, according to Alan Soloman, the American Egyptologist, was under Uya, when he has a title of Deputy of the King for Chariotry. So at that time only, alone, the chariots became a separate unit in the army, separate from all the. And we find in the Bible 2 mentions in the story of Joseph, 2 mentions of chariots. Once when Jacob and the rest of his family came to Egypt because it was Pharaoh allowed them to come. So Joseph went with his chariot to meet his family at the borders. This is at Goshen, the area where they settled down in northern Sinai. The second time, when Jacob died in Egypt, because Jacob died in Egypt, and Joseph took the bones of his father and he went to bury him in Canaan. So it said that Joseph took the whole chariots, with the charioteers, all of them. It means that he was allowed to take all, he was ruling over the chariots. He was the lieutenant of the chariots. So too many similarities. Now, I mean, it might be very strange that you see when Isaac, had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. Esau, because he came first, although they were twins, believed that he has a birthright because of his birth, which we don't know what kind of birthright if there is no inheritance. But Jacob, who believed so much in the birthright, gave him a soup of lentil soup to buy his. Eventually, Joseph believed that his son, the 11th son, Joseph the dreamer, is the one who can, be interested in this idea of the birthright. So he made him this color coat and so on. So when he came to Egypt eventually, and he was I don't think, Hotep III married the daughter of Uya, all right, whom I think to be Joseph, but he had more than 300 women in his harem. He could have made her one. He loved her, he wanted her, he could have made her one of his many wives, but no. What happened with Hotep III is he insisted against the wishes of the priesthood that she should be his royal wife, his queen, against all. Why did he do that? I think because, you see, he realized that she was descendant of his grandfather. Through Uya, Joseph, she was descended from Thutmose III, David of the history. She was of the same royal family. So that's why he married her. By marrying the daughter of Joseph, Amenhotep III united the 2 branches of David's family. The one who of his own ancestor through the Egyptian queen, and the ones from Sarah. The 2 branches came to be united with him, and so it produced the next generation, which made the whole revolution in our understanding, which is Akhenaten and Tutankhamun. The Amarna, they called the Amarna king.
Now, let's stay for a moment with one of the titles of Uya, the master of the chariots. We have often heard of Solomon's stables, And Solomon's stables were said to have been in this city that the world knows today as Jerusalem. But from your work, that city was not always known as Jerusalem. That city was known by another name. So let's stay here with Amenhotep III. In your research around Pharaoh Amenhotep III, does the city now known as Jerusalem, and do these stables that were supposed to be at Jerusalem, are they facts in Amenhotep III's life?
You see, from the list of the cities of Canaan mentioned in the Karnak by Thutmose III, we find the name of Jerusalem as Kadesh. Kadesh means holy. The word Kadesh, which is now the Arabs call it Quds, which is the same as Kadesh. Quds means holy city.
Mm-hmm.
The same city during the time of Amenhotep III, from the Amarna letters, we have the letters coming from the city, it became known as Orushalayim. Or is the city, Shalayim is peace, the city of peace. So I think the city took the name Jerusalem during the time of Amenhotep III because he was Soloman, he was the king of peace. You see, and at the time also, Amenhotep III had many buildings. One of them, he established some chariotry, some part of his unit of his army in different towns in Syria and in Canaan. One of them was in Jerusalem, one in Bethel, and so on. And everywhere when he left his army unit, Egyptian army unit there, now the area is called in Jerusalem the Soloman Stables, which became next to the Muslim mosque, and which is used now as a praying area for the Muslims. You see, this was the area where the stable of the king, Amenhotep III, was left. And in each city where he had this army unit, he also built a shrine, a small temple for them to worship. So I believe, obviously at that time, for a small group of army, 50 men or so on, he would not build the big stone kind of temple. He must have established a small shrine. So the Soloman temple in Jerusalem, obviously it would be near the rock, by the rock, because the rock is known as the holy area in Jerusalem. He must have built the first temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, was a shrine for the Egyptian unit established there in Jerusalem, in the temple there. As we know, even the Jewish temple was not really built before in the first century BC. Although it was regarded as a holy place and worshipped there from the time of Ezra, 5 centuries BC, but it's only when the temple was rebuilt just in the second half of the first century BC by Herod the Great. It was Herod the Great who first built the temple, really established the temple. So it's the same place, yeah.
So this small shrine,
yeah,
was a place for his charioteers in the small garrison he had there, so that they, as Egyptians, could still worship in this place.
Yes.
You also shared that Kadesh means holy place, and because he was revered as the man of peace, the city's name was changed to Jerusalem, or City of Peace, during his reign. And this is documented in Karnak.
Yes.
one of the major events in Amenhotep III's life, which is similar to Solomon's life, is the story that we find in the Bible of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. This story is of great significance to the nation of Ethiopia. You cannot go anywhere in Ethiopia without hearing the story of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. In fact, the Ethiopians contend that the Ark of the Covenant, an ark, is still in a church in Aksum in Ethiopia, and Ethiopian royalty traces its line to Menelik I, who is said to be the son of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. If Amenhotep III is Solomon, and if, as you say, Dr. Osman, he had many diplomatic brides, is it unreasonable for us to believe that this queen from Ethiopia, from Aksum, could have been one of these diplomatic brides? We know that Tutmosis III's mother, Hatshepsut, documents that she journeyed to the land of Punt, which was the area we now know as Ethiopia, during the time of Tutmosis being a boy. That means that this area of Ethiopia and ancient Egypt had contact even then. Would it be unreasonable to think that this lady could have been one of his diplomatic brides?
You see, the thing is, the Egyptians regarded this eastern coast of Africa, Ethiopia and Somalia and so on, as the land of Punt. They called it the land of Punt. And they regarded it as a holy land, because they used to get the incense and the things they use in the temple worship and rituals from this area. And they used to get different, even they get sometimes some animals. They got the cat from there. They got different animals and different incense things they use in the worship, temple. And as you said, during Hatshepsut time, the queen of Punt, this queen of this land, came to visit Hatshepsut. And Hatshepsut in her temple, we have scenes of her, her visit. So I believe, yes, Queen of Sheba must have come, because they used to come every year, really, to meet the Pharaoh and bring presents with them. All the presents of this queen, as mentioned in the Bible, are found in this area. And you see, although regarding the Ark, I don't believe it is the Ark of Covenant. This is not the Ark of the Covenant. You see, because the Ark of the Covenant had to stay until Akhenaten came to rule and so on. But the Egyptian king would not let his visitor, the Queen of Sheba, go back without a present. He would give her some present to take with her. And these presents, as usually in Egypt, they have to carry it in an ark. An Egyptian ark was certainly sent there because it carried with it some presents from Egypt with the queen. But before Moses and his ark, Moses came after Amenhotep III died, and his so it's not the Ark of the Covenant, but an Egyptian ark of some kind. And I have one point that can confirm this visit because in some of the stories in the Quran and some of the biblical comments, an account of what that says when the queen went to meet the King Solomon in his room when he was sitting on the throne, the crown room. I mean, she saw as if there was water in the, water pool in the ground and the floor. So she left her dress in order not to, and if you go to the British Cairo Museum in Egypt and to see the area of Amenhotep III, you find the floor that was part of the crown room in his palace. I saw it myself, and it's a painted water with some fishes and some in it. Yeah, I saw the ground myself in the Cairo Museum. The same area which you feel as if it was a pool, painting pool. This was a floor taken from the room of King Amenhotep III. Yeah, this is part of the, it made me think it could not be by chance that's how with the story. Yeah.
So here we have documentation, and we have real evidence of contact between ancient Punt and ancient Egypt, going as far back as Queen Hatshepsut. And we have information that royal visits of royalty from Punt coming to the great empire of Egypt was ongoing on an annual basis. And so we will leave it to you to make your judgment, but on the information that you heard from Dr. Osman here, it would not be unreasonable that these two great lands had contact, and because the great emperor had diplomatic brides to keep the peace and also to continue trade between nations, it very well may have been that this queen of Punt, a daughter of Puntland, became one of the diplomatic brides of Amenhotep III, the Solomon of the Bible, and hence we got the story of Solomon and Sheba. There is another person besides Sheba in this saga that we need to hear from. In the Masonic world, there is a character known as Hiram Abiff, who was said to have been the architect that helped to build Solomon's temple. And he was a very skilled architect and a very wise man. Dr. Osman, does Amenhotep III have such a skilled person in his administration who you believe is in fact the historical Hiram Abiff, who is an actual man who was in the administration of Amenhotep III? Did this man exist, and what is his name?
Of course, he did exist. He was a great man. He was known for a long time. You see, he had somebody called Amenhotep, son of Habu.
Son of Habu.
He has the same name as the king. Yeah, in the Bible they call Hiram Abiff. Hiram, the same name as the king of Phoenicia. Abiff means his father. I mean, he has the name of the king, added to it his father. In fact, here we have the name of the king of Egypt, not the king of Phoenicia, his father. So I mean, Abiff is part of, Amenhotep, son of Habu. Son of Habu means son of his father. You see, is the same way. I mean, this guy was a small man from the Delta, but he grew up to be an important character. He was appointed the Amenhotep III as his architect, main architect, and the builder. He used thousands of men to build different, he built many temples, really. He built the temple of Luxor, he built the temple of Nubia, he built different temples in different areas. But the more important temple he built is the mortuary temple. I mean, the story of Solomon says that Solomon built the temple of the Lord, next to it, his own royal palace. In Jerusalem, they found neither this nor that. But in Egypt, we have in the area, on the west bank of Luxor, we found the remains of the royal palace, which was built by Amenhotep III during the time by Amenhotep, son of Habu. Next to it is his mortuary temple, his great mortuary temple. In the same, and exactly in the same way and the same dimensions as mentioned for the temple of Jerusalem and the royal palace of Solomon. Meanwhile, it is only in the Masonic tradition that they think that this guy was killed. This guy was killed. Now, Maniso, the Egyptian historian of 3 centuries BC, mentioned that son of Habu was killed, but nobody killed him. He killed himself. He was, he for some reason he was living at the same time of Akhenaten and the Israelites and the same God, and he saw things are coming bad for some reason, so he committed suicide. But as the Masonic story says, it was the king who searched for his body. He found his body, and he buried him in a tomb next to his royal palace and next to his temple. This is only found in the Masonic tradition, and in history we find it there. And this guy became, they made a statue, 2 statues of him in the Karnak temple. And he became the first in the history of Egypt, the first saint, the first mediator, where people used to go and pray for him to mediate with God. If they want to save the children from death or have some, something to, he became a saint. He was worshipped for more than 1,000 years until the Greek and Roman times. People went and worshipped him and as a mediator. And his followers continued to develop, and they went through the Isaac kind of the worship, and they established the first community in Alexandria and around Alexandria, who, when the Romans closed the temples, they became known as the Gnostics. And they were, they created the first Gnostic Christianity, a spiritual Christianity before the Gospels appeared. And he was worshipped by people for more than 1,000 years. I think this is the real historical.
Historical Hiram Abiff.
Hiram Abiff, by the way.
Thank you so much for.
But because the Masons, you see, were forbidden. They were persecuted by the Church of Rome, and they had no books. They have to rely on their memory. So when they went back, I think now they can confirm that the connection with the Alexandrian Gnostics is really confirmed, and up to the day of Amenhotep, son of Habu, the great master.
That is information that I'm sure is helpful in Masonic history to reveal the great master, the great architect, was a living flesh and blood man who existed during the administration of the great emperor Amenhotep III.
So Dr. Osman, as we close this part of the Secret Origin series, please share with your audience, with our audience, why you think making David a real historical figure, why making Joseph the dreamer a real historical figure, why making Solomon the wise man a real historical figure, Moses the lawgiver a real historical figure, and Joshua, or the Jesus model, a more historical, understandable figure. How would that promote greater fellowship and understanding in this world of war, misunderstanding, and in many cases, falsehood? How would this work, Secret Origin, foster greater brotherhood, greater alignment, greater fellowship and understanding?
In reality, Stan, I'm not making these characters historical, because if we believe in the stories of the Bible, I mean, David made a big empire between, they're giving a geographical location and time in history and so on. Jesus appeared as historical, and Moses and so on. So all what I'm trying to do, I'm not inventing, I'm not producing something new. I'm just trying to see what is behind the story, what is the real historical events that were told by the Bible in the stories. You see, I believe that our religious beliefs, like our being, really have gone through an evolution. I mean, from a period to another period, from an era to another era. And that's why now I believe that our faith, our religion, is going to a new era. And we have to understand it according to this era. For instance, I'm not making it on my own. This is a must. So we have heard a few days ago that Pope Francis of Rome, I mean, Rome, you know, about 5 centuries ago, condemned Galileo for death, because he said that the earth goes around, that the earth is circle, not flat, and it goes around the sun. He was killed because of that. At the time, it was regarded as a heresy, something against. However, the Pope Francis 2 or 3 days ago said that he believed in the Darwin evolution ideas, and not only that, but he believed also in the Big Bang. I mean, he said the creation as it is in the Bible story, I mean, is not historical. We cannot take it as historical. This, we have to understand it in a different way. So all what I am doing, you see, I mean, in the beginning, when man was a primitive creature, I mean, each tribe had its own religion, its own God, you see, and each God, they believed that this God will help the tribe fighting another tribe to get the water or the food or whatever it is. Then, with time, we went through a village structure, a city structure, and a state structure. And each time, God has become, different. Until I mean, then when we have the empire, Egyptian empire, the Roman empire, the Islamic empire, God became universal. However, it became universal within the limits of the empire. Yani the China is not part of it, so it has another God. South Africa, and so on. But now we have come to realize through our, scientific understanding that the whole planet we are living in is one unit, and whatever happens in, environment or weather or whatever it is, does affect all of us. We can die, all of us, or live, all of us. We are one. So now is the time to see that God is a universal God. You can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew, you can be a Hindu or whatever it is. But if God has created the world, then this God is one for all of us. Although we come and see it from different views, we have different ideas of God, but it has to be one for all of us. In this case, why should we fight? Why should we? Before my God, will help me to defeat your God. Now, if our God is a universal God, is for all of us, we shouldn't fight. We shouldn't hate each other. We should keep the planet, all the planet. I do not only try to protect my land and my country, but also your land and his land and her land. We are now, as the Pope said, we are all descendants of the Darwin evolution, and we all came, as a result, the whole creation came as a result of the Big Bang. We have a one source of our existence, and we have a one planet to live in, all of us. Why should we fight? Why should the Russians fight the war Eastern Europe for no reason? Why should the Chinese and the Americans have a conflict? Why should the Israelis and the Arabs have a conflict? Why should we do that? Why don't we sit down, all of us, and realize that we are belonging to the same planet, and we have to work together to protect us. You see, in a few hundred years, or maybe 1,000 years, we are working to destroy our planet. We are working to destroy the earth we live in. If we go on like we are doing now, our planet is in danger of completely destruction. So we have the chance now, because of our, look at NASA and the photograph they have for the universe. This is a jump, complete jump in the future. We can see our minor place within this universe. So we have to keep our universe. We have to keep our planet. Otherwise, we would all be destroyed. So I think now is the time to re-understand the mythology. The Greeks and the Romans had the Olymp and the gods fighting and whatever it is. This was at the time the understanding. Now, when with the Torah and the Quran and the Bible and so on, we started to believe that God created Adam and Eve about 600 years. Now we cannot do that. Now we have to rely on our modern scientific understanding, knowledge, to re-understand. The core of the religion is there. The only thing is how we understand it. We have to re-understand. So if they say Moses did so and so and so, Jesus, was Moses a real historical character, or was it a mythology like the gods of the Olymp? If he was a historical, if these characters, biblical characters, were real characters of history, then we should find evidence of them and details of their stories in history. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So I'm bringing people together and going into a new era. We are, whether I do it or not, maybe I'm just a voice crying in the. I mean, but at the end of the day, when the Pope Francis of Rome says that this is a great step to the future, I'm just telling you what is happening now according to our modern scientific understanding.
Well, we thank you for more than 50 years of work in this area of trying to further the cause of fellowship, brotherhood, and peace by making historical events more real, to give us a greater understanding of some of the events that we've been told about in sacred science and the holy books, you know, the Indian Bhagavad Gita, the Islamic Quran, the Christian Bible, the Jewish Torah. These are filled with stories, and if you can help us to make these stories more real, and look at the historical events in them and see if we can make the events more real and the characters more real. It doesn't change the stories. It just gives us a deeper insight into them. And so we thank you for this work. I encourage all of those who will see this video to get a copy of Secret Origin now. We are working with several platforms to produce a series and a featured film to foster, again, greater brotherhood, greater understanding, and greater peace. If you like today's content, then make the connection and subscribe to Matthews TV on our YouTube channel so you can continue to get great news about all that's going on in the Secret Origin community and also around the globe in the global Black community, the global brown community. This is Stan Matthews. I'll see you soon. Subscribe now.